Hamburg, Germany, 1914. Two brothers sit at opposite ends of a transatlantic banking dynasty that their family has been building since 1798. One of them, Paul, emigrated to America 12 years ago. He married into the most powerful investment banking family in New York. He spent a decade lobbying Congress for a central bank. He was present on Jekyll Island in 1910, and when the Federal Reserve opened its doors in 1914, he was sworn in as one of its first board members. The other, Max, stayed in Hamburg. He runs Warburg and Company, one of the oldest private banks in Europe. He is the personal financial advisor to Kaiser Wilhelm II. In August 1914, the world goes to war. Paul Warburg manages American financial policy from inside the Federal Reserve. Max Warburg advises the German war effort from inside the Kaiser's council. Same family, same bank, opposite sides of the most devastating war in human history. This is the story of the Warburg brothers. The Warburg family story begins not in Germany, but in Venice. In 1513, an ancestor named Anselmo del Banco was granted a charter by the Venetian government permitting the lending of money with interest. The Del Banco family was among the wealthiest in Venice. When new restrictions were placed on the community, the family fled, first to Bologna, then to the German town of Warburg in Westphalia, from which they later took their name. They eventually settled in Altona, near Hamburg, in the 17th century. And it was in Hamburg that in 1798, the brothers Moses Marcus Warburg and Gerson Warburg founded Warburg and Company. The bank specialized initially in foreign currency exchange and bills of exchange. Over the next century, it grew into one of the most respected private banking houses in Germany, financing the Hamburg wholesale trade, funding colonial ventures of the German Empire, and building relationships with the most powerful figures in German industrial and political life. By the time Max and Paul Warburg were born, in 1867 and 1868 respectively, the family bank was already over 60 years old. They grew up inside it. They trained inside it, apprenticing in Frankfurt, Amsterdam, Paris, and London before returning to Hamburg. The family had built something from nothing across 3 generations. Max and Paul were about to take it global, but in very different directions. Paul Warburg arrived in New York in 1902. He married Nina Loeb, daughter of Solomon Loeb, co-founder of the investment bank Kuhn Loeb and Company. His brother Felix had already married Nina's niece, Frieda Schiff, daughter of Jacob Schiff, the most powerful banker in America. The Warburgs were now connected by marriage to the apex of American banking. But Paul's obsession was not personal wealth. It was the American banking system, which he regarded as dangerously primitive. The central figure on the technical side in pushing for the development of an American acceptance market was Paul Warburg, the immigrant younger brother of a great Hamburg banker, Max Warburg, who was the personal advisor of the German autocrat Kaiser Wilhelm II. Paul spent years writing essays and lobbying congressmen for a central bank modeled on European lines. He was a key player in the Jekyll Island discussions in 1910. He helped draft a legislation that became the Federal Reserve Act of 1913. Paul M. Warburg was sworn in as a member of the first Federal Reserve Board on August 10, 1914. He was appointed vice governor on August 10, 1916. He had resigned all his directorships and partnerships, giving up enormous personal income, to serve on the Federal Reserve Board for a government salary. Many of his contemporaries regarded him as the chief driving force behind the establishment of America's central bank. He had spent 12 years building it, and now the country he had built it for was at war with the country he came from, and the brother he had left behind. While Paul was transforming American finance, Max was transforming German finance. Max, older by a year, succeeded his father as head of Warburg and Company and built it into the foremost private bank in Hamburg. He was recognized across Europe as a brilliant student of international finance. Governments consulted him. industrialists sought his counsel, and Kaiser Wilhelm II made him his personal financial advisor. From 1910 until 1938, he was director of Warburg and Company in Hamburg. As head of that firm, he advised Kaiser Wilhelm II prior to World War I. When war came in August 1914, Max did not step back from German public life. He stepped forward. He coordinated German war finance. He advised on economic strategy. He helped manage the enormous financial burden that a world war placed on the German state. Max Warburg was a patriotic German whose brother was now a senior American government official managing the financial policy of the nation Germany was fighting. The two banking brothers Warburg were in fact on both sides of the Atlantic, energetically pushing for German-American institutions that would offer an alternative to the British industrial and financial monopoly. They were convinced that Germany and the United States were growing stronger year by year, while British power would erode. That shared vision of a world where German and American financial power rivaled Britain was now impossible. The war had made enemies of the systems the two brothers had built. As the war in Europe dragged on, and American sentiment shifted toward the Allies, Paul Warburg's position became increasingly uncomfortable. He was German-born. He had been decorated by the Kaiser in 1912, and his brother was advising the German war effort. When Henry Ford launched an attack on Paul Warburg in 1925, accusing him of being the head and front of a movement in which the Federal Reserve System was being used as an instrument to foist German financial methods on the United States and to bring about a German control of American industry and business, the Pacific banker dismissed the accusation as ridiculous. But the accusations kept coming. Congressional critics questioned his loyalty. Newspapers speculated about his German connections. Paul Warburg responded with absolute transparency, publishing his correspondence, defending his record, continuing his work. But in 1918, as the war ground toward its conclusion, the position became untenable. Paul Warburg resigned from his position in 1918. His resignation was due to his brother Max being appointed as an advisor to Kaiser Wilhelm II. He wrote to President Wilson directly. He stated clearly that he had brothers in Germany who were loyal Germans just as he was a loyal American, and that he could not continue in his role while his country was at war with theirs. He resigned from the board on August 9, 1918. 4 years building the Federal Reserve, 2 years managing American wartime finance. Resigned because his brother was on the other side. On November 11, 1918, the guns fell silent. 4 years of war, 17 million dead, the map of Europe redrawn. And in January 1919, the Paris Peace Conference opened at the Quai d'Orsay. The victorious Allied powers, Britain, France, America, Italy, gathered to determine the fate of the defeated nations. Germany was not invited to participate in the initial deliberations. The German delegation arrived only in May 1919 to receive the conditions of peace that had already been decided. As one of the most prominent bankers of his time, his brother Max Warburg attended the Paris Peace Conference of 1919 at Versailles as part of the German delegation. And Paul Warburg attended as the American representative at the Treaty of Versailles Conference, where his brother Max was on the German side of the bargaining table. Two brothers. One had spent the war managing American financial policy. The other had spent the war advising the German government. Now they sat across from each other at the table where the terms of Germany's defeat were being determined. Paul on the American side, Max on the German side. The same name, the same blood, the same bank their family had been building since 1798. The Treaty of Versailles imposed crushing terms on Germany. Massive reparations, territorial losses, the war guilt clause, forcing Germany to accept sole responsibility for the war. Max Warburg warned that the terms were too harsh, that they would destabilize Germany and create conditions for future catastrophe. He was correct. In the years that followed, Max became one of the most prominent figures in German public life, serving on the board of the Reichsbank, advising Weimar government officials, fighting to sustain the German community as political conditions darkened. Max Warburg was recognized as a brilliant student of international finance. He advised the German peace delegation at Versailles after World War I, was regularly consulted by Weimar government officials, and served on numerous German corporate boards until forced to resign by the Nazis. He simultaneously provided leadership through his work on behalf of communal organizations and philanthropies. In 1937, Reichsbank President Hjalmar Schacht informed Max that Warburg and Company could no longer remain in the Imperial Bond Consortium. Max replied that he would have to liquidate the company. In 1938, the Nazis arrested Fritz Moritz Warburg, former head of Warburg and Company and younger brother of Paul and Max. After being held for several months, he was released and went to Stockholm. Max himself, faced with imprisonment following the horrors of Kristallnacht in 1938, fled Germany and settled permanently in the United States. The bank his family had built in 1798, 140 years of history, was seized by the Nazis. Paul Warburg did not live to see it. He had died on January 24, 1932. The Warburg story is one of the most extraordinary in the history of banking. A family that built a private bank in Hamburg in 1798 sent two brothers across the Atlantic. Watched those brothers end up on opposite sides of a world war, sat across from each other at the peace table, and then watched their family bank, 140 years of history, taken from them by the country Max had served. In 1949, a restitution agreement was concluded, making the Warburg family represented by Eric M. Warburg shareholders in the bank once again. Warburg and Company still exists today, still headquartered in Hamburg, still partly owned by the Warburg family. The Federal Reserve still exists today, still headquartered on Constitution Avenue in Washington. Both institutions built, in very different ways, by the same family. Two brothers, two nations, one war, one peace table, and a bank founded in 1798 that outlasted everything: the Kaiser, the Weimar Republic, the Nazis, the Cold War, and is still standing today. The vault gets richer. And somewhere, always somewhere, something else is burning. Subscribe to Vault and Ruin. We go where the money went.